Hi, welcome back to Cross Stitch the Globe. My name is Stephanie. This is a channel about cross stitch. Today is going to be a solo video, and today's topic is going to be, I'm a little bit scary to talk about it, but today we're going to talk about all the lessons I learned, the mistakes I made, the tips I have for running your own from doing my Destash, which to date has taken in $9,093 of revenue, not profit, revenue, and has started in September, so it's May. So I've been doing this for about 9 months, and I've done it on multiple platforms. I've sold all kinds of different cross stitch items from different cross stitch eras. So I figured I would just share what I've learned and also kind of give you guys the breakdown, because I know some of you guys have more stuff than you want. Like, you're looking at your cross stitch stash and you're like, 25% of this is stuff that I know I'm not going to stitch. It was me in a different era, or it was gifted to me and I love it, but it's not for me. And you might just want to know, what are your options? So today we're going to talk about, I'm going to give you guys the numbers of my Destash. I'm going to break it down, like what the cost of goods were, what my profit was, and then what breaks down into like per hour what I made, so you can decide if I'm stupid for doing this or not. I was happier. I was very scared the number was going to be like per hour, like less than minimum wage, but it wasn't. But we're going to break down those numbers. And also, I'm going to talk about like how much I have Destash, how many orders and things, just to give you an idea of where I'm coming from with this advice. And then tips and also lessons. I've learned some hard lessons that cost me money, and hopefully no lessons that cost me relationships with people, but in sales, you just never know. So I'm going to spill the tea on all of my real actual numbers. And then I'm going to talk about, if you decide you want to destash and you decide you want to sell things, we'll talk about that stuff first. And then we'll talk about, if you get through this whole video and you're like, that sounds like a lot of work and I don't want to do any of that. If you decide you just want to gift things to people, we'll talk about that a little bit too. And I have purposely scheduled to start this video an hour before my kids come home, because I don't want this to be a 90-minute video. If any topic interests you guys so much you'd like a dedicated video about it, feel free to leave that in the comments. But there's a lot to talk about, so let's dive right in. So my Destash, how I got to the point where I needed to do a Destash. I started stitching in 2023, and Allison is very frugal, which you guys know, and she's very she doesn't buy a lot of stuff and she doesn't have a lot of stuff, and she only has things she's going to actually stitch, and whenever she kind of gets to a place where it feels like it's too much, she gets rid of stuff. That's not my style, but because I have been a travel writer and I have moved and sold all of my stuff while I sold all my stuff to move to the East Coast, and I sold all my stuff to move to Europe, and then I sold all my stuff to move back to the United States. So I was kind of blinded to like how much I love to shop, because my life was I artificially was not able to shop, right? But then I'm here, I have 2 kids. We moved back because I had a kid. We moved back when he was 11 months. I moved here, you know, we had to get an apartment together and stuff, and I did a lot of it with garage sales and things, but I did end up I bought way more clothes than I should have bought, and I put myself on a clothing no-buy in 2024. I need to take the lessons that I've learned from Destashing cross stitch and actually declutter my clothes. That'll be for my secondhand shopping channel. You guys won't have to live through that with me. But anyway, so I love shopping secondhand. I love going to vintage markets and buying old stuff, but I still bought too much of it. I bought too much clothing, and then I stopped buying clothing, but I had just fallen in love with cross stitch and I wanted to try everything, and so I was buying a lot of stuff just to see it, and it was fun to support small businesses. Didn't have a great idea of how much I would really use in a year, which, you know, so if I'm buying 3 times more than I'll use in a year, and I do that for a couple of years, well, then that ends up just being like, it was too much stuff. But I still was like artificially blind to it because we were living in a really small apartment. And so it felt like it was just the constraints of the apartment. But then we moved to this house last summer and I got a craft room and it's still too much stuff. And that was when I started to be like, oh, okay, like this room that I'm sitting in, it's about how much stuff I ever want to have craft-wise other than like framed finishes in other parts of the house and like the whips that are by my chair, my stitchy spot, because I don't stitch in here. But as far as like cross-stitch storage, this room was kind of like the biggest room I could ever think I'd really want to dedicate to it, even if I had a much bigger house. And I probably will never live in a bigger house than this. I'll probably like, my actual preference is for all the other rooms to be way smaller because I'm sick of cleaning them and sick of feeling bad not cleaning them. But this room, so this room is kind of like it, and it was too full. And I know that it's not like I'm going to not ever want something new in the future. And at the same time, I'm a travel writer. I won't get into like how AI and how Google search algorithms have like destroy the independent publishing business, like internet publishing, but it did. And so about the same time that we moved here and I realized I had too much stuff, my income started going down, but my soon to be 2-year-old started getting crazier and my life started getting crazier. And so I had less time to work. And so destashing some stuff that I wasn't going to use in the next like 5 years just made sense, right? Like, and I just did kind of a little trim. I didn't do like a whole thing, but that taught me a lot. It got me started. And once I realized that other people actually really liked the stuff and appreciated it and liked different stuff than I expected they would like, it kind of gave me the confidence to be like, okay, well, let's destash a little more and destash a little more. Now, I have turned a corner and am destashing and also truly like reselling, like buying things to resell. However, you would, looking at my craft room, you'd be like, you didn't destash a single thing because I have a lot more to go. A lot more to go. Plus, like I have so many whips that if I didn't start something new for 6 years, I wouldn't need to buy anything, which means that like, you know, I need to just stitch my whips. And I had too many collections. Like I pared it back to now I'm only allowed to collect one designer. I'm not allowed to just like collect out of print other designers. And I try to keep the cross stitch books that I'm really good at stitch out of. And I told myself, okay, I need to get rid of the rest of it. But I started a secondhand shopping channel and I love to go thrifting. And when I see stuff in the thrift store, I still want to save it. So I was destashing stuff, but I'm still bringing stuff home. And so it just seems like the amount of stuff was like never ending. So in February, I like got real serious. I was like, I'm getting rid of everything. No, did I get rid of everything? No, but I listed so much. And after that, I turned a corner. I was like, I really enjoy doing this. And I feel like I can make enough money to make it worth it. To spend some of my time doing this. It's a great side hustle for a mom with little kids because I can do it after they go to bed and no boss is like, why aren't you at work? If one of them's sick, I can just like, you know, when our heat went out and I had to take a day off of like stuffing envelopes, like nobody was going to yell at me. So it's a great like side thing for me to be doing. But that's kind of my story of how I got here. And because I will continue to run a secondhand shopping YouTube channel and keep going to places, I will continue to get stuff in. Plus some of you guys have reached out and sent me stuff either just for free because you thrifted stuff you want me and you don't want it in your house either. And that's been so great. Or send it to me but ask me to pay for shipping, or said, here, I can give it to you for like thrift store prices. So I don't see like me running out of things to like destash or resell at this point. So I've switched it over to Etsy in March. And that's what I've been doing for the last 2.5 months. That is the solution that works best for me, which we'll talk about more. But anyway, that's kind of my reseller journey. And to date, as a destash, I have sold 757 items of cross stitch or related fiber arts. And I have another 420 currently listed in my Etsy shop, like 424. So that means I have like processed, touched, listed over like 1,100 pieces of cross stitch and a few quilting things, a few needlepoint things, but like fiber art stuff, which seems crazy, but also seems like a legitimate number. I have processed a total of 315 orders. 2 of them came in yesterday and are not shipped yet, but the other 313 have been shipped. And I have had a few issues, which we'll talk about in shipping, but not that many. Like I feel like a respectable low percentage of issues out of those 315 orders. So of the $9,093 that I have like taken in, it's actually technically a little more than that because Etsy charges sales tax, but I wasn't charging sales tax when I did it through Instagram and YouTube. So we won't count the sales tax. So across all platforms from September through today, May 21st, I've taken in $9,093. My shipping, my costs, so like shipping labels and shipping material costs, and platform fees, which we'll go into when we talk about platforms. So those costs, like not the cost of goods, but just the cost to get an order to someone, like via one of these websites and the USPS. I said that weird. The United States Postal Service, the mail was $2,712 because shipping is a little bit expensive. And platform fees can be expensive. We'll talk more about that in a little bit. My cost of goods. So when I went back, I don't have like 100% numbers, but the best estimate I have is that like the money I actually spent on all this stuff was $3,366, which like 2/3 of that is fabric. So my costs going forward for cost of goods are going to be really, really low because that includes the kind of stuff at the beginning where I was destashing like fabric or more expensive cross-stitch accessories that I didn't end up using. Whereas like most patterns I've spent like 25 cents, 50 cents on. But anyway, my total cost of goods was $33.66. Most of that as like personal things that I spent money on from like over like a year and a half. So it kind of like sneaks up on you. But some of it, like truly, some of it was like buying this box of stuff to sell or towards the end. So like towards March, I started buying things to resell because I was having fun doing it. But most of that is was like just like the price of like cross stitch haul that I got. And then so that means my profit was, so I recouped the cost of all my goods that I had sold. So my profit was $3,015. Going back and estimating like weeks where I did this like a couple days a week, months where I did it a couple days a week versus there were a few times where it was all I did for like 2 weeks of my free time. Estimating that means I made $20.10 an hour, which is, it's weird to think about. Like, it's weird to think about, like, okay. So the cool thing is that I did make my money back. I like didn't lose money on the stuff that I bought, and I made enough money to make it worthwhile on top of that for my time. Enough that I'm like comfortable doing it as like a part-time side hustle going forward and trying to like keep it to like 10 hours a week. But I enjoy it a lot. So anyway, and then some of my shipping numbers I will share with you guys in Etsy. So my dashboard. So since I switched over to Etsy, if you want to know like my customer service stats, I have 0 cases out of 97 orders, an average of 5-star review, 99% on-time shipping, and 100% message response rate, which makes me a star seller on Etsy. I don't think I would have that rating if I had started on Etsy to begin with because I learned a lot of lessons in the beginning. But I think I have, over the 9 months and over the 300 orders, figured out a lot about how I want to destash moving forward. So if you are interested in doing a destash at any of those levels, just the like, I want to get stuff out of my craft room level, or like I find stuff at thrift stores all the time and I want a place to resell it so it doesn't get taken to a landfill level, like wherever you're at, I just want to share what I've learned. And then you guys can decide, you can decide for yourself, like if it's something you want to do. And if it's not, I'll tell you some different resources for where you can just take the stuff to hopefully get it to other stitchers. So, okay, so that's my journey, and like, anyway, that's my journey. I'm very happy that I recouped the money on the stuff that I spent during a time when I needed the money more than I needed the stuff. I am not cross-stitch poor. Like I said, I have enough whips to stitch for 6 years, 7 pattern binders, 2 boxes of DMC, a box of fancy floss, like a hoard of vintage hoops. Like, I still have stuff I could destash. Like, I'm not like cross-stitch poor, but I was glad to recoup the stuff that I was not using and had no like serious plans to use, and to make enough money that the hours I invested in that were worth it. Because I think if it was like, oh, I recouped my money, great. But if I didn't do more than that, then I wouldn't want to keep trying to do it. And then I would need to like stop. But the fact that I actually made more on top of that, and those are stats I'm going to keep an eye out on. So we're going to talk about today: picking items, photographing items, pricing your items, listing your items, including picking a platform. And I'll talk about what I've used and what I haven't, and options in that. Marketing your items, shipping your items, and then accepting feedback on your items. Okay, so picking out the items so first of all, if you're just going through your craft room, you guys, I literally did a video where I just kind of did some declutter and put some stuff in a box and like listed it all, and a lot of that stuff is sold. That box is like dwindled down to like not very much. So if you just go around your craft room and start putting stuff in a box, like some of the best declutter videos I watch on YouTube, like from like, I think her name is, I don't remember what her name is, but I'll link to below. She's a method called decluttering without making a mess, and you go into a room and you take a donation box. And in this situation, your donation box would actually be your like to destash box. And then the method of destash you kind of determine as you go after that. But you destash box, obvious trash, and you put those things in there first. Like if I came into this room and it would take me one day to take all the trash out, first of all. Then the next day I just did all the stuff I wanted to destash. You have like a lot less stuff in the room, in the space, but it's very easy if like you take out all the obvious stuff first. But you might be like, okay, well, what's obvious to you isn't necessarily obvious to me. What I decided for myself was if I was not going to stitch it or touch it or stitch on it or use it in the next 2 years, I was going to get rid of it, because I just needed cash more than I needed to like, it's a beautiful piece of lakeside linen. But in 2 years, if I'm sad that I don't have it, that's okay. Like I can make plans in a couple years to get more. I have enough, right? And I have like, I need to finish whips so that I can get fabric off of projects and reuse them. So that was kind of like, okay, if I wasn't going to stitch on it, stitch with it, stitch it, if it was a pattern in the next 2 years, like logistically, I was going to get rid of it. With the exception that I had a vintage hoop collection that I was not going to make myself go through. I've listed a couple metal vintage hoops and wooden hoops that were like other things that came in that were in my collection that Allison gave me. And 3 of the 4 of those sold. And I listed some vintage quilting hoops and they both sold. But I didn't make myself go into like my princess hoops and stuff. And I didn't make myself go into my mirabilias. But everything else, and then there were some things where people gave them to me to do as giveaways on the channel. Those are in a special place, so they are not being sold. But anything else, if I really couldn't see myself touching it, if it wasn't in my 2025 plans and I had no interest in putting it on my 2026 plans, then I pretty much listed it. But I also listed things like unopened Q-snaps and like quilting fabric that I wasn't going to get to that I thought people might like. And I listed floss that I got. Like I had a big box of floss that wasn't DMC where I pulled the DMC out. I like looked up the price for that and I listed that. And I've listed a ton of vintage fabric, like the types of vintage fabric you might think wouldn't sell. Someone has a nostalgia for a lot of that stuff. So if you're going through your personal stash and you're trying to decide what you want to list and you have the capacity to list, I would just pull everything. Because also the bigger your destash, the more attention it's going to get, the more that stuff is likely to sell. The worst month I had was when I only did like 25 items because it just didn't get enough attention. Or people didn't pull the trigger because they said like in their head, my guess is that they're like, well, I only want one thing. It's not really worth it. Whereas like when I listed like 600 items in 1 month, people had like a lot of stuff to go through and they put together their own bundles of like 6 or 8 things. So in my experience, anything you have that is cross stitch or fiberglass related, if you're going to take the time to do a destash, however you're going to do it, list it. If nobody buys it, that's fine. There are some methods of listing stuff where it stays up and it might get bought later. And there's other ways where maybe it doesn't. And maybe at the end of the destash, you take the box to one of the options I'm going to give you at the end for getting rid of it that way. But I would not be afraid, like weird old patterns, things you think are so, like things that are not your taste are someone's taste. Things that are not your taste might be my taste and vice versa. The type of hoop that you use, you might think another type of hoop doesn't work and someone else loves it. I was shocked when someone bought one of the quilting hoops that I had because it had an obvious flaw and I listed the obvious flaw. But not only did it sell, it sold through like an Etsy ad. So like someone was out there searching for that and I happened to have it. So I wouldn't be super critical about what your items are. I would just be thinking like, can I get like at least 75? If I was going to run an Instagram destash this weekend, I wouldn't bother if I didn't have like at least like 75 things to list. The more stuff you list, the more attention you can get. People can get bundles and things put together, the more likely things are to sell. But I wouldn't be hard on your items like my stuff isn't good enough to destash because I have sold fancy out of print stuff and I've sold the weirdest stuff that you find in a thrift store and people like all of it and it's not the same people that like all of it and it's not all stuff that I would, because I'm destashing things I got in like Facebook Marketplace hauls or things people even sent me to destash. It's not all my personal taste, but I'm not critical of the items. I can see the beauty in each item and like why someone would want it. And I've watched so much Flosstube, I can even picture like what type of stitcher might want it and get excited for them that they might find it. And also like a lot of people who've been stitching for years and years and years are like kind of like some of the older stuff you can't get anymore. But then some people who haven't been stitching for as long don't even know what the older stuff is that's out there. So I would just, if you have it and you think someone else might get use out of it and it's either that or goes to a landfill, I would just get it on your destash and like see what happens. Where I draw the line at that though is if I'm going out in the world and like at a thrift store and I'm buying something, like I'm investing money in something, not something I think I might stitch, but I might not. But like if I'm like looking at a pattern, I'm like, I'm definitely not going to stitch this, but do I want to save this from the landfill and take it from this thrift store because I'm worried that if I leave it at this thrift store, no one's ever going to get it. Because I go to a lot of like really dusty old thrift stores that not very many people shop at. The line for me there is $1 because if I pay $1 for a pattern and I list it for the price that I know I can get for it, and it's not like of something that's super special, I'll probably get $3.49 of like profit on that pattern. If it's just like something regular or something still in print, I'll probably get $3.50. which only adds up if I can do a lot of them. And so if a thrift store has like old vintage booklets for $2 or $3, then I'm only going to pick those up if I really know I'm going to stitch it. The exception is if I think something might have more value than, like if I think I can list something for more, like let's say I saw an out of print memorabilia. There are some that I would not pick up for more than, I probably would because I'd want to save them. But let's just say I saw a copy of Elizabeth in the Lavender Sky for $10. I would not pick that up. But if I saw it for $1, I'd pick it up. But if I saw Lady the Flag for $10, I'd probably pick it up. And I know some of you guys have used our most expensive cross-stitch patterns and books to like help you source things at thrift stores because you guys tell me that. And that's super awesome. But there's a whole lot of stuff below the most expensive. And so the more you like price cross-stitch stuff, the more you can kind of get comfortable with like, oh, if I see a bright needle pattern out in the world, I'm going to look it up. Because some of those are like $70, $80, and that's like worth paying $3 at the thrift store for. But if, I don't want to knock any designers, but if it's a Dale Burdette, I'm probably not going to be able to list it for more than the minimum amount that I list for, which we'll talk more about in pricing. So I'm not going to pay more than $1 for it because that's the only way I can really get my money. Like that's the only way I can really make it make sense. A good rule of thumb in the reseller world is that you should be able to get 3 times what you paid for something, but it's not like listed for 3 times. You have to take into account platform fees and costs. So in order for me to profit 3 to 4 times what I pay for something at a thrift store, which is the kind of like, so the reseller rule is like 3 times, 3 to 4 times is better, but list it for what it's really worth if it's more than that. But don't get something that you can't get for less than 3 times unless it's like something you know you can really flip. And that's like furniture and stuff, not our world. So like I wouldn't pay $100 for a copy of Lady the Flag to list it for $200, even if that maybe would work out. Like that would scare me. I wouldn't do that. Also, things go back in print all the time. So I would not invest a lot of money in any particular pattern to do that. Like that's not, my mission is to save stuff from thrift stores. And also now my mission has become to like give people who want to send me stuff that they save from thrift stores, but they don't want to hold on to. Like that's my mission, is like to make some money while saving stuff from landfills. So I'm not like speculating on cross stitch patterns. So I'm mostly in places where things are like $1, but sometimes a place will get greedy and list them for $3, like this one thrift store I go to. And like they have booklets listed for 50 cents, but they'll have like dimensions kits that have no materials in them. It's just a pattern listed for $3. But most of those I'm going to have to treat like it's the lowest price of pattern that I sell. So in that situation, like I wouldn't pick those up. It would make sense because I would lose money on it. So, or spend so much time selling it that it wouldn't, like, it would, the cost trade-off for me saving that pattern at the point does not make sense. If that makes sense. Okay. So that's kind of how I decide. If it's my personal stash, I just list it and I just see what happens. If I'm out in the world and I'm trying to decide if I want to buy something, if it's a pattern or a pattern book, like a old like leisure arts book or something, not booklet, but like one of the like books, it's got to be $1 or less unless I look up the price, which we'll talk about in pricing, and it's and it sells for more than that, and it usually sells for more than that, and it sells not super slowly. And I've gotten like randomly lucky and found out something I picked up was worth a lot of money, and some of them sold, and some of them haven't sold yet, but like it's very rare. Like mostly you pick up an old booklet in a thrift store and it's, you know, not going to be worth a ton of money. And you just, the way I make a little bit of money is by doing a lot of them. So anyway, so that's kind of how I decide what to list. And if you're going through your stash, and you're like, well, I only have 20 things, but they're all like Hands Across the Sea kits from the attic. do it anyway. If the stuff you have is like highly sought after, let's say you only have 10 things to destash, but it's all like mason linen, then this doesn't apply. But if you have like the normal types of like accessories and patterns and things that accumulate, especially if you have a lot of imprint patterns, then I would try to get closer to 100 and list them all in one big bang. But literally any item that's in my craft room right now, except for the trash, I could list on a Destash. I could list, I've sold finished pieces, not my own finished pieces, but I've sold finished pieces that I found for like good, respectable amounts of money, and you're saving art from someone. I know some people who've sold their own finishes. It's not like a business model where you would start stitching to sell your finishes. Like, that's insane. But if you had some finishes lying around that you didn't want anymore, someone might want them. So, okay, those are my tips for deciding what to sell. Basically, sell anything unless you're paying new money for it. And it's not like a sunk cost if you already own it. New money, be really careful, like 3 to 4 times did you pay for it. And I personally rarely pay over $1. Because also out in the world, these people don't even know this stuff has value. It only has value to us, right? Like, what can someone do with a cross stitch pattern? Whereas like a finished cross stitch piece, anyone can enjoy. Okay, so photographing. I don't know if you can tell because it's not, my desk is like a white desk. I put my stuff on this desk in good light. I don't edit because I want the light to be, I have a filter that I made for myself. I'm a photographer. So I'm a travel writer and travel photographer. So I have, I use Lightroom to use a natural filter that I made, but you don't need that. Like, I just take photos on my cell phone, but I try to do it with a white background in natural light. Take photos that have enough border around them so that you can crop them. I take good quality photos and then I take screenshots of the individual patterns on the booklet. So if I was selling a pattern, I'm not selling this, but if I was this is mine forever. Strawberries Forever is mine forever. If I was gonna sell this, I would take one picture of the whole thing. Some platforms wouldn't even have 2 photos, so then I would just take that one photo and I would crop it on my computer. But I would just take one good high resolution photo. You can take a photo of the back too if you want. If I was selling something like this, I would take a good photo of the front, a good photo of the back, high resolution enough where I could crop the individual patterns so that people could see them, because that's hard for people to see. Like, and there's even like older booklets where it's like 50 finishes on the front. I try to make the photos good enough that people can kind of really see what they are, because those booklets have more patterns in them. Theoretically, they should have more value. But it's like, it's almost impossible to sell because they were made for a time when you bought them in person, you could see what was in there. They weren't made for a time when a screenshot of this would have to sell the whole thing. Oh, I just love Polyvon stuff. I'm going to have a Polyvon pretty soon because I finally picked out the Polyvon that I'm going to do, and I'm going to destash the rest of the collection that I've amassed because I'm only allowed a Mirabilia collection. But that's coming soon. All right, so that's how I take pictures. I don't stress it too much. Etsy likes you to have videos. I don't worry about it because mostly the people who are buying my stuff on Etsy are buying because they know me and they know either my Instagram or my YouTube channel. And so Etsy is doing some marketing for me, which we'll talk about in marketing, but mostly they're coming from me. So I just try to get good photos. And then I put stuff up, and if the photo, when I go to list it, isn't good enough, then I can fix it because, I might be photographing 100 patterns, and I want that to take no more than 2 hours. So I can't be fussy about anything, but I can come back later and be like, okay, well, there was one where it wasn't good, and I can go back and get that when I'm dealing with it later. If you're photographing an item, like let's say you're photographing like a finished cross stitch piece or like a hoop or something, any wear, like any places where there's like a dent in the frame or like wear on the hoop or like anything like that, you want to take a close-up picture of that. Anything that's damaged, you want to take a close-up picture and make sure you disclose that in your listing, but take a photo of it so someone can see it. Patterns, I don't really do that because like my assumption is that like as long as they can see the pattern that they don't really care. And also like the whole pattern booklet is good. But if I had one that had like some water, let's say I had a really valuable pattern that had a little bit of water damage, which I have had before. I had a prairie schooler that got some water damage and for my son. And so when I showed it on YouTube, I was like really clear about like, okay, here's where the water damage is. But if I had listed on Etsy or Instagram, I would have taken an up-close picture of the water damage and disclosed it in the listing. Because what you don't want is someone to get one of your items and it not be what you said it was going to be. Like the best reviews are when people, like the reviews that make me, I love every good review. But the reviews that really are helpful, I think, to other people is when it's like, package arrived on time, package got shipped quickly, item came exactly as described. Like on my vintage resale shop on Etsy, which is pretty new, I sold a paint by numbers painting that people collect old paint by numbers paintings, and I got it for $10 and I sold it for $88, which was great. $89, which was great. I mean, you know, after fees and shipping and everything, is not, you know, I probably made like $50, but it was still, that was really cool. And it had 3 spots of damage, and the seller in that review said like that the photos that I took of the damage were really great because they were accurate. So if you have something that's damaged, it doesn't mean someone won't buy it. It just, you just need to disclose it. And if it affects the price, like disclose that too. Okay. That is photographing. If you have any questions about any of this stuff, like feel free to leave it in the comments and I will reply. I actually love talking about this stuff. Pricing. Okay. For in print and available. So the first thing I do, like let's say I wanted to sell this. I never would. But let's say I wanted to sell Told in a Garden Strawberries Forever. This is in print. It's on 123 Stitch. So I would go see what their price is and I would like knock 10 to 20% off depending on what I think it is. Occasionally this will go backstock on 123 Stitch, and so I would know that and know I don't want to knock too much off my price because probably what's going to happen is somebody's going to want it. 123 Stitch will be out of it and they'll come find it on my shop if they didn't buy it just directly from me, knowing me, like, and they watch my shop regularly. So that's what I do for end print stuff. I just try to make the price good, keep in mind the things I know about the market that are out there, and don't stress it too much. Now, for things that are out of print, I'm not 100% sure that these are out of print. I haven't researched them, but let's pretend like they're out of print if they're not. I would Google it. I would Google good neighbors. Okay, let's say that I was going to do this one because this is the one I'm going to stitch. Let's say I would say Victorian Bouquet, Paula Vaughn. So I would Google Victorian Bouquet Leisure Arts 521 and see. And if there's like 15 listing on eBay, I'll go look at what the prices are, and I'll probably make my price pretty similar. The best thing to do is to check what it's actually sold for, but that is an extra step. So I don't always go do that if it's like something simple, like a booklet that I know probably gets bought and sold like 10 or 20 times a year. I just kind of make sure my prices are in line. I don't mind if I'm a little bit higher priced than some people because, one, I put a lot of time into the marketing of my stuff in terms of making sure people know what I have available and know that like I'm curating stuff and finding stuff. They know me. It's not the same thing as buying from like an anonymous eBay person. So I don't like try to be lower than what's out there. I also don't think people value things if they're just the lowest price out there. Like if somebody, you know, lists something for $10 and I list mine for $5, people might just be like, well, what's wrong with her item? And I want to keep this stuff out of landfills. So I want people to buy it who are going to treasure it. So I don't try to go with the lowest price. But when people in my Etsy store hit $35 and they get free shipping, that gives them, and then also I have coupons on my store for people who like favorite items and leave things in their cart and who buy things, they can get 10% off. So if somebody uses a 10% off coupon and gets free shipping, at that point they end up being like less than they would pay as a one-off on eBay. But I want people to shop from my store who are going to value the items and also value me and know that I need to make like enough money from doing this that it's worth doing, right? Like I'm not just a person that resells everything under the sun on eBay. Like I specialize in this stuff. I know what it is that I'm looking at this point. I treasure this stuff, and if I list it for $8 and eBay has it for $7 and someone wants to get it from eBay, like that does not hurt my feelings. I know what my lowest price is. My lowest price is $8 per pattern. It was $7 when I was doing stuff on Instagram. That was kind of where it ended, was I realized $7 was the lowest I could do to make money. But at $7, when I switched over to Etsy, Etsy's fees are a little higher. It became $8 and I'm just like, okay with that. Like if you go to eBay and you look for the same item and it says like it's $4 and you want to get it from them, like that's fine. I would lose money if I sold some of the stuff when you add in all the time and things for the lowest possible price. But I also don't try to make things the highest price. So I try to really take into account what I know about what's out there. And also the fact that like if people know me and trust me and like me, they're probably going to buy a few things from me. And when you buy a few things and you end up getting like all those other discounts, it ends up being a really good price per item. I think if you just buy one per item, it can be kind of the same, but you know it's coming from a person that you know and you trust and maybe hopefully want to support me as opposed to support someone you don't know. But like again, like it won't hurt my feelings if somebody finds out about a pattern from me and then goes and buys it on eBay. Like that's fine. It's the fact that I have so much stuff and that they know me and they interact with me enough that I feel like makes it that I can say like, well, this is what my time is worth, and I just can't. It just can't be worth less than that, or I have to go find something else to do with my time. So that's pricing. If something is like out of print and expensive, like then you got to decide how much you want to do in terms of like, do you want to wait? Like if you find a pattern, like let's say you find Lady the Flag. Sometimes she goes for $300, but sometimes she goes for $175. Let's say you find her and you want her out of your set. You just want someone to have it and you don't like need it to make as much money as possible. And you list it a little bit lower. People might wonder what's wrong with it. Like honestly. But if you like, and that's where like good marketing comes in. Like, and marketing is kind of a cool term, but that's where like getting the word out that you have it and you really like, and you want to sell it, like that's where that comes in. Okay, I hope that made sense. Listing. All right, you need to pick a platform. Platforms I've used. I started on Instagram. I've also done YouTube videos because some people were like, so I started with just an Instagram Destash account, which is really common. Like I know like Jessica the Sweetwater Stitcher has a really good Destash. And I'm totally the Calculated Stitcher does her Destash on Etsy, which is where I got the idea from there, and her Destash is really good too. And but you know, people will pop up and do Destashes when they kind of just realize they have too much stuff, and not because they want to like do it regularly. And Instagram is a great place for that, because you can start a dedicated Instagram account for it, or you can do it on your main one. The problem I ran into was that it wouldn't let me post as much as I wanted to. And so sometimes it would block me from posting things right away. And so that was kind of frustrating to be like, well, I have 20 things listed, but now I'm on a 12 or 24-hour block from listing anything more, because Instagram doesn't want you to like list so fast. So if you have like 100 things to list on Instagram and it's your first Destash ever, you could list them slowly over a few days and tell people about it right when it's done. Like when they're all there. Because you want people, as soon as they hear about your Destash, to be able to go look at everything. Now that's not what I've always been able to do, but like that's the best like sales option, is to let people see everything and go pick through everything and decide what they want, so they can tell you what they want. You can get them invoiced. If you do it through Instagram, they don't pay through Instagram. I have a business PayPal and I felt comfortable using that for invoices. It does take a little bit of money out, but that gave this me seller protection and the buyer protection. I did run into an issue where printing labels from PayPal directly. So the first time, a couple of times I did it, I invoiced through PayPal, but I hand wrote out the labels. But then I got a label printer when I had done it enough. And I love this thing. I'll link to all the supplies I talk about below. I love this thing. I looked on how to buy a secondhand one. I couldn't find one. And so I ended up buying one on Amazon. But I have used it like, you know, over almost 200 times now. So I love it. But anyway, when I went to just print the labels from PayPal, if someone had, I was hand typing in people's addresses and the PayPal was putting in whatever address they had on their account. And so like 6 orders got sent to the wrong addresses and a couple came back here and I was able to resend them out. But obviously that's double the shipping. And some people's never made it. So that stressed me out a lot. So if you decide to do Instagram plus PayPal and you want to print your labels through buy and print your labels through PayPal, which is still a good option, triple check that the address they gave you matches the address on the account before you actually purchase the label. I didn't realize that that was a problem until I had already done all the orders and it was too late. And even then, everyone that happened to came back and told me that it happened except for one person. One person complained to PayPal directly, which is fine. Like it was within their right to do. But PayPal, I had thought that I had purchased labels through PayPal that did not have tracking. And it said it came with insurance, but there was no proof that I had turned in the thing to the post office. So even though, and it was a copy of Lavender and Lace Enchanted Alphabet, which is like hard to get. And so returning the money was fine because like I budgeted in for like, oh, X percent is probably going to get like have problems or be returned or whatever. And about $200 of the costs that I talked about were me having to issue refunds for different things at different points. But, so PayPal did not, even though I had insurance on the order and seller protection, PayPal ruled in her favor, which was fine. Because I had no proof that I turned it into the post office because it wasn't tracked. So I did like 200 orders like, with no tracking so that to keep the cost down because that kept the shipping costs to like $3 or $4 instead of like $4 or $5, right? But it ended up being, and it probably still ended up overall saving me money because like overall that only happened to a handful of orders. But the ones that it did happen to, it sucked and it's not fun for someone to buy something from you and it never get there. So I think there were 3 completely lost orders. That one, and then 2 others that I issued funds for a few orders where I had to pay double shipping. And that was all through this like annoying PayPal error. So not even error. I don't even know what it is. One girl went and talked to PayPal about it. I don't even know. Like at that point, I already moved my stuff to Etsy and I was like, you know what? I'm just not going to deal with it. Because the nice thing about Etsy is they say this is my shipping address. And then when I buy the label through Etsy, it's the shipping address they said it was. And there's no question. And then as long as my stuff on Etsy gets checked into the post office, I have seller protection and they have buyer protection. So if something happens to the order, we're both protected. So I liked Instagram plus PayPal, but there were some issues. Now the fees are lower. My total fees on there between like business fees and then getting the cash out fees were like 5%, whereas Etsy fees end up being closer to 10%. However, doing stuff manually, I made some data errors on my spreadsheet that required me to stop and recheck 600 items. It took me 2 or 3 days. Manually, I had to check every single item. And if I had done it through Etsy on that would not have been an issue. So I think Instagram is a great place to start if you're just going to do like 100 items and you just want to like try and see if it's for you. I think at the point at which you want to do it on a regular basis, that would drive me nuts. I reached the point where it drove me nuts and I had to get more organization. I own 3 websites, but setting up Shopify to do it out of my own websites, I just knew technically I tried to set up Shopify in 2017 for something else. That would have driven me nuts. I know not everyone likes Etsy, but for me and my business, it was the only thing that made sense because it's, I feel like eBay really encourages really aggressive offers and stuff that can really devalue your stuff. Like, I'm not trying to sell like the very lowest price. I'm trying to sell cool stuff to people that are going to appreciate it, but also want me to like not starve to death or like have to spend like that time. Like, you know, if I was making like $7 an hour instead of 20, I wouldn't be able to do it. So I don't want to be doing it on eBay where they're like trying to give people like 30% off coupons and stuff. Or like you're having to compete with like $4 copies. It's like, well, that person, there's no way that person's making any money off of it. So anyway, that was my experience. I started with Instagram. There were a lot of pros. There were some cons. That's why I switched to Etsy. Now, most people won't want to do like a YouTube video, but if you already have a YouTube channel, I did a few YouTube videos because people told me they didn't have Instagram, and I felt bad that like there were people who liked me and wanted to support my vintage stuff and my destashing, but didn't have a way to do it because they weren't on Instagram. So I made 3 videos where that stuff was only offered. Well, 2 of the videos were stuff only offered on YouTube, and some people shopped on both platforms. And then the 3rd video was stuff that had not sold on Instagram. I've listed it on YouTube. Those were really easy to do on the front end. They were more tedious to like track and do it on the back end, and more people ended up backing out of items that they claimed on YouTube than on Etsy, but not that many. Or not Etsy, than on Instagram, but not that many. Like I think like 1 person backed down on Instagram and like 3 people backed down on YouTube. For the most part, stitchers are amazing, and if they say they want to buy something, they actually buy it. And even the people that backed out, I think it's more like we still haven't communicated, and I have their stuff, and if they want it, they can have it. I haven't like sold it to anyone else. So Etsy was nice though, because then 2 people don't back out. They put in their cart, but they know they have to actually pay for it if they want it. And if they're not the first person to get it, I only have 1 of most things. So they know that. Like, it's not like Etsy will tell them like, like 4 people have this in their cart and there's 1 left. 1 person has this in their cart and there's 1 left. Like, you get it or you don't get it. But for me, at the volume that I'm doing now, Etsy is better. When I started out, Instagram was better. Platforms I have not used eBay. I tried to start doing eBay, and then I didn't get it done, and I'll deal with it later. I haven't used Mercari. I have cross-listed on Facebook Marketplace, so you can cross-list. There's a cross-listing platform called Vendu. There's some other ones too, where you can like take everything from your Etsy store and relist it on eBay. It wouldn't let me list on eBay because my eBay account's not set up correctly for that. I'll get to it. But it did let me cross-list this one very expensive needlepoint kit that I found onto Facebook Marketplace, but it didn't sell there either. And I've heard Facebook Marketplace doesn't have the seller protection, so I just haven't dealt with it. And then Whatnot. Some people do sales on Whatnot. So like Beck from Beck Spin she is a cross stitcher with the Flosstube and also has a real estate sale company. She does like cross stitch only sales on Whatnot because she's doing like volume. So those are places that you can also potentially research that I have not used. I like Etsy. I was inspired by the Calculated Stitcher to do it on Etsy. I already had an Etsy shop. There are also downsides of Etsy. Setting up a new Etsy shop can be a little complicated. It didn't used to be. They have more stuff now. You have to pay stuff now. Like you have to pay to set it up now. It's not free. And then also on Etsy, you have to pay 20 cents to list each item, whereas on Instagram, it's free. But once you want like once you want more organization, the other thing about Instagram is I would like list everything, but then things that didn't sell I had to take down. Whereas on Etsy, I leave them up. So I have 400 things up now that are not from like a current, like today I didn't list them. But if they, if they sell in 6 months, that's fine. But if you want everything out of your house right now, you can just throw it all up on Instagram and say, whatever's not claimed in 48 hours is leaving my house one way or another. All right, marketing. Instagram, social media, you have to tell people. You need to put it in your stories. If you make a separate account, you need to put it in your stories on your main account. No one will know to come to your Destash if you don't tell people about it. And that can be a little embarrassing. Like I was in sales for a very long time. And then I was a travel writer. So I have been, which is like it's education, but it's also sometimes marketing. So like no one's going to buy your Destash shop if no one knows that it's there. So if you put it on Instagram, you got to tell people about it. If you put it on Etsy or eBay, technically they will market it for you. And it can be embarrassing to say, hey, I just listed a bunch of stuff on Etsy or eBay. Like it can feel like you're like, I don't want people like it feels, sometimes it sucks to feel salesy, but people will not know that it's there if you don't tell them. So the best thing to do, in my opinion, is to let people know that they're doing this and let the people who want to support you, and let the people that want a deal look for a deal. Because if you just list a bunch of stuff on Etsy and you don't SEO it, like I don't really do that much SEO on my listings because I don't think most people are going to come from Etsy. Most people are going to come from me. So, like, if I didn't tell anyone that stuff was there, like no one would know it was there. No one would buy anything. And I would have 1,000 things listed. So marketing just means telling people that you have stuff available and you got to do it. Like you got to think, okay, I'm going to list something on this. I'm going to go to the trouble of listing something on this platform. I know I don't want it in my house anymore. And I know someone else might find value from it. If you're going to go to all that trouble, then you've got to go to the next step up. And I'm going to tell people that it's for sale. And, even if you're just listing things on eBay, I would still share it to your Instagram stories or talk about it on your YouTube channel, or at least like if you don't have any of those, but maybe you're in some Facebook groups, like tell people. Another option is to use Facebook Destash groups. I have not done that because I had a friend get kicked out of one for like a sassy reason. And so I'm like a little turned off by them in general. But I know a lot of people find some really cool deals in them. But that's a great way to go if you're not like me and have not heard a sassy story. So, if you've got to get your stuff in front of the people that could potentially buy it. And that can be hard. You got to get out of your comfort zone and just do it. And if you don't want to do it, then you probably don't want to deal with selling it because the stuff could sit there on eBay for 6 months. It might sell eventually, but it's not going to leave your house quickly. If you don't tell people, like if you don't tell stitchers that there's stitchy stuff to buy, they won't know to buy it because eBay right now just can feel like thousands of unwanted, unloved patterns with no urgency behind the sales. And Etsy can feel like a lot of patterns that are a little like, a little bit cheerier, but like the only way to provide urgency and like to let people know is for you to do the work. So whatever way you interact with stitchers, you need to tell them you got stuff available. In your own space, like on my own YouTube channel, I don't mind being a little bit annoying about it. But, like, I don't go into, like, the Oklahoma Cross Stitchers group and say, hey, I have a bunch of stuff on my Etsy store. If that was my main form of talking with other stitchers, I would probably ask the Facebook group runner, like, what am I allowed to say? And then follow the rules. If you're going to be in a Destash group, you got to follow the rules. But you got to tell stitchers the stuff's there. Okay. And the Destash groups, I think you just sell directly on them, but I haven't used them. I bought one thing. I bought a Raggedy Ann kit for Allison out of a Destash group. But mostly I just lurk in them. Okay. Shipping. Oh, this is the last. No, we're going to talk about this. And well, I talked about reviews a little bit. But the last big thing is shipping. Okay, to ship patterns, if you're only going to do a few things, I would just use the USPS mailers, but not the pre-labeled ones. Some people have told me, out of the kindness of their heart, you know, the USPS will give you free mailers. They will, but those are all like preset weights, and they're almost all way more expensive than doing ground shipping. But with ground shipping, you need to bring your own mailers. Now, the USPS, if you go into the store, they have a little retail section, and the mailers there are like $2. So at first, I was doing that. But this mailer is like 60 cents each for a pack of, I want to say, 100. So it's a little bit of investment. But if you know you got like, 50, it kind of depends. Sometimes it's nice to just take all your orders and then figure out how you're going to ship them. But anyway, at first I was using USPS stuff. Now I do enough that I just buy the mailers directly. But not everything fits in this one. So I also ended up having to get these. These are like $1 a piece, but still cheaper than the post office. But only cheaper than the post office if you're going to do enough volume that you're going to use them all. Because otherwise they might be cheaper per, but like you will have just a bunch left over, which you don't want. So if you're going to ship from home through Etsy or PayPal or Pirate Ship, which I use all three shipping methods, and you don't need a label maker. You can just print a regular slip and tape it on. That's really fine. I just don't have a regular printer. I don't have a regular printer, and I wanted like a label printer. And I had destashed enough stuff at that point, and I knew I was going to be doing a lot more going forward, that it was worth it. But you don't need that. You can just get a regular printer. Buying your shipping through Etsy or PayPal or Pirate Ship is about 20% cheaper than buying it in the store. And I would never ship anything through FedEx Ground because I've heard that they have some really nefarious practices right now around they'll accept a package and then they'll upcharge you later. So I just use the post office and I use ground shipping. I got these on Amazon. I will link to them below. I have done so much research to see if I could find them something similar somewhere else. But Uline is like twice as much for this, and I have to invest in more to even get that rate. And so I'm just I feel a little stuck with getting the ones on Amazon, but that is where I am. So I've moved off of Amazon, buying anything off Amazon this year, with the exception of I did buy my my printer, my labels, and my envelopes on Amazon. These envelopes come with these stickers. If you are mailing something ground shipping tracked, then put this on there because it's fine. But if you are trying to mail something and you don't want it tracked, you want it to go as like a letter, then don't put that on there because they have to be technically allowed to bend it for it to count. So as a letter, and I don't think you can use these. I think you have to use like regular manila envelopes. Which I do sometimes when someone wants like good shipping prices to like Canada, then I will if they want shipping to Canada for $4, it has to go as like a letter. And then I get like a manila envelope or the post office. I usually get the post office like cardboard mailers and do it like that. But you can't put a do not bend sticker. And you cannot use, if you're not going to do something tracked, you cannot use a bubble mailer, which I learned the hard way. So this can only be something that's tracked. And these are actually, I would never buy these again. I bought them at first. They're the wrong, I still use them when I can because I want to I want to go through them, but they were a waste. This is what I use for most things when I'm just going to mail patterns. Now, I will only put like 4 or 5 in here now. I used to put more, but somebody told me that their one came almost open. So when I close it, these pop open, I'll tape them. Otherwise, if this starts to feel a little full, even if they're not too big for this one, I will switch to the larger one. This is 12 by 9. This is 13.5 by 10. Almost every pattern or magazine I've mailed has fit in one of these. If you got a package from me from before I switched to those, it was probably from the USPS. It is surprisingly difficult to buy mailers same day, not at the post office. Like, I'm not really shopping at Target, and I'm only shopping at Walmart for essential stuff that I have to. But neither of them had good same day, like go in and get mailer options. I found mailers at thrift stores, but they tend to be bubble mailers. And again, that's not really what I want. What I want when I'm shipping patterns is this stuff. When I'm shipping boxes of mixed stuff like books and hoops and things, my parents and everyone in my family know to save all their boxes and their bubble wrap and stuff for me. And I try to use as much stuff secondhand as possible. So it may be more expensive for me to ship a heavy box, but the box and the bubble wrap is probably free to me. I have bought one thing of bubble wrap to do like a bigger thing. And then one time I wanted to ship like a finished cross stitch that was like rolled like as a poster. So I bought like a $5, $6 poster roll, but I knew I was going to do that. And so I included that potential cost in the listing. So if you have an item that is going to need expensive shipping supplies, like for me on Etsy, they don't let you put the price of shipping supplies and the shipping cost anymore. That's also part of why it went up, because I just know like this is 60 cents. This is $1. So like when I'm pricing stuff, I need to price it where if somebody buys one pattern, that it's still, I don't lose money on the shipping supplies. I also have, for the boxes, I have packing tape. And then you need a scale. If you're going to do it from home, you need a scale and a measuring tape to label things. And if you're going to, when I put stuff in Etsy, I list the dimensions of what the package will be. And I just kind of know, like, everything I send is going to go in a 12 by 9 or 15 by whatever, or 13.5 by 10, unless it's going to be a bigger box. So like if I have something that's bigger, I need to kind of know what I'm going to ship it in. And then I also bought some like electric cardboard cutters, but some of the stuff I bought mostly because I'm also shipping vintage items, which could be any configuration of stuff. Cross stitch stuff is mostly pretty easy to ship. The hardest things I've shipped have been hoops, and it's just making sure that they're like bubble wrapped nicely. I had a weird box. I had a weird size of Q-snap that was hard to kind of configure. But other than that, like shipping, once you know that like you really want to go ground shipping and you really want to purchase your labels online, you want to weigh them. I already had food scale, so I just commandeered it. But you could probably find, scales are not super expensive, but I wouldn't buy one for like 100 item thing, like Destash. You know, I invested in things as I got to the point where I was going to be doing more and more. The first time, like my shipping costs were higher per item because it wasn't worth it at that point for me to go out and invest in a scale. Well, I didn't invest in the scale, I already had it, but I wouldn't have invested in a scale or a label printer or any of that for like one round of Destash. I'm just showing you what I actually use now. But in the beginning, I literally just like packaged things up, hand wrote the address on there, took it to the post office, or showed up at the post office like a stack of patterns and things and all my notes on where they went, and and stuffed the USPS envelopes. I'd get the like brown mailers they have, stuff the envelopes there, hand write it on there. And yeah, that was a little more expensive per item, but allowed me to just get things out the door fast without over investing in new I didn't want to invest in new stuff to sell stuff I didn't want unless I really needed to. I hope that makes sense. Okay, if you have questions about shipping, I'm happy to go over it. I'm going to link to these two mailers. I also have these poly mailers. I don't really, I do occasionally use them, but I wouldn't suggest getting them for this. It took me a lot of trial and error and watching a lot of other people's videos in the like reseller world to figure out exactly what I need and what I didn't. I have definitely spent money on things that like are not ideal. Over time they'll get used, but like if I were you, fabric can go in a bubble mailer, but fabric can also go in one of these. The only downside of these is they're not waterproof, and I did have one pattern get water damage. So if you have anything that like you're worried about getting water damage, you could always put in like a plastic bag or something. But for the most part, like I haven't gotten complaints about these. I got one complaint about these, and the complaint was it was about to burst open, and I changed. Okay, my camera just died, but I was wrapping up anyway. My kids are going to be here in 5 minutes, so perfect timing. You can see my shipping station a little bit more. Again, these are the ones I use all the time. These are the ones that I will probably, it's going to take me years to use them all up, but I'll link to these good ones in the description. Reviews. If you go on a platform like Etsy, or even if you're on Instagram and someone messages you, there will be problems. It can be hard to like face when you make mistakes, and also like to pay for the mistakes with like literal cash refunds and things. But just do it, because so many of my people who buy from me have bought from me multiple times. Even people where even the person who like said like it was about to pop open, like has bought from me again. So just take care of things, be receptive to feedback. And if you do choose a platform like Etsy, customer reviews matter. So asking for reviews is great, and also just like encouraging people to review and like respond to the reviews you get. Just like be active, because the reviews do matter in terms of Etsy, then promoting you to other people, and then people when they go on there seeing like, oh, this person's trustworthy. So all right, that is all. Okay, actually never mind. I'm gonna have to edit this in, because I totally forgot to say that I was gonna tell you guys what to do. If you heard all of this and you're like, I have a lot of stuff to destash, I don't want to do any of that. Some tips. Okay, so first of all, yeah, most people who have a destash, stuff they need to stash, do need to sell them, because just sending them for free all over the country would be too expensive. If you don't want to, let's say you want everything out of your house, like tomorrow, go to your local Facebook Buy Nothing group and just say like, I have a box of cross stitch stuff. You got 24 hours. And just get it out of there that way. If that doesn't work for you and you don't have any stitchy friends to give it to you, you know, if you're going to a conference, you can take it to the freebie table. If that doesn't work either and you just need it out now and you want to take it through a thrift store, I would go small independent thrift store before like a Salvation Army or Restore or Goodwill, because the local ones are more likely to just plop it in the corner and actually get sold to someone. Whereas like Goodwill and Salvation Army don't sell all their cross stitch stuff. A lot of it goes to landfills, and some of the Goodwill stuff goes to the bins. And I know that because people have found stuff at the bins, like Marissa from Inclusive Creations talks about going to the bins in some of her videos. So, oh, my kids are here. I gotta go. Anyway, so yeah, so Buy Nothing group, then local thrift store, then like big box thrift store, or take it to a convention or offer up. You can also say like, I don't want it, but I can't, but if you pay for shipping, you can have it. That works for people too. All right. Okay, my kids are fully here, but one place I did forget to talk about taking stuff to is a local craft reuse store. We have one here in Oklahoma City called Shrove. That's my kid. That's a car. We're in real life now. We have one called Shrove. There's one in Dallas that I know of that I follow on Instagram. There are creative reuse stores all over the country. So if you don't know anyone that wants it in person, before you even look at like regular thrift stores, just Google like creative reuse store in or near where you are and see if there is one, and if there is one, take it there. Because they're more likely to have the right customer base to make sure the stuff doesn't end up in a landfill. Because obviously the best thing is if you can get your money back on stuff you paid for and a little bit to compensate your time. The next best thing is just to get reimbursed. The next best thing is to keep it out of a landfill. And a creative reuse store is your best bet for keeping it out of a landfill. Although some stuff still gets recycled there. I know, because one of you guys have been messaging me about stuff that can get recycled at local ones. And then, you know, but as soon as you take it to any place that you're not selling it or giving it, like as soon as you take it to a donation situation, stuff might end up in a landfill, and you have to decide if it's worth your time to get it to the community or not. if you have stuff you really want to get out and you're like, I absolutely can't do any of that, Stephanie, but I need it out of my house, you know, you could always contact a local floss tuber, your favorite floss tuber, and see if they want to do it as giveaways. And say, like, I'm going to send you this big box of stuff, and you can just give it away.
Mommy, can I put this shoe?
Yeah. Okay.
Mommy!
Back to the end of the video. You'll see me. Sorry, I'm putting my arm down. That is all. I had a floss tube out on Monday. If you want to see my current stitching, members, our Zoom stitch together will be on Sunday, so I will see you then. Otherwise, everyone else, I will see you on Monday for another floss tube. If you are not subscribed, I would love if you would subscribe. And if you made it to this point in the video, I'd love to hear anything that your personal destash tips or experiences, and then also leave an emoji of, leave a money emoji. And that'll be your secret language if you made it to the end. All right, thanks so much. Bye.